Hey guys, Jeremy here with Simple Little Life, and welcome to another edition of Tool Time Tuesday. This week we're going to talk about what I would consider one of the most basic hand tools for metalworking, and also one of the most misunderstood, misused, and miscared for tools in metalworking as well. We're talking about the basic hand file. Lots of different styles, shapes, and colors. We're going to go over a little bit about that, proper use, proper care, and I'll show you some things that a lot of people surprisingly don't know about files. Let's get started. Alright, so starting on the files here, I've got a selection of different files in front of me, and they come in all different shapes and sizes, and super handy tools. One thing I think that people don't understand about a file is that a file should last you for a lifetime. I think a lot of people kind of look at files as a disposable tool, and again, they're fairly inexpensive. They're not, when you're buying better ones, they're not cheap, but they're really not an expensive tool. But I think that so many people just kind of think, oh, let's buy a file and use it, and then when it's done, we're going to throw it out. And I kind of think that's a bit of a shame, because a good file, like for instance, I buy mostly Nicholson files, but any good quality file should last you a lifetime, provided that you use it properly and care for it properly. So let's talk quickly about the use of a file. The file was the one tool in my toolbox that I would never lend to anybody. For the reason that even tradesmen, even people with journeyman tickets that are, machinists or millwrights and welders, they would not use files properly. And what I mean by that is that a file is a cutting tool, and any cutting tool either has teeth or a blade. Files don't have a blade, they have teeth. And anything with teeth is designed to cut in one direction only. So when you're using a file, remember, if you want your files to last a long time, they cut in one direction and one direction only. So it's a cut and lift up and pull back, cut, lift up, pull back. Not this, all you're going to do is destroy your teeth. That one tip there will make your files last so long, they will cut faster, and honestly, you should be able to buy a file and get 10 years of hard use out of it. Second thing most people don't consider when they're looking at files, and this is probably because, well, I don't know. You go buy a file at a hardware store, and they have quite a selection of files. You go to, Home Depot and stuff like that. What they often will not sell is a file card. This is a file card, and what this does is it cleans. It's like a special type of a wire brush. I don't know if we'll get much of a close-up on this, but it's got these bristles on it, and they go out and then back, and this is used to scrape out the material from in between the teeth, like this. Again, these are more effective just to pull like this, but if you buy a file, I suggest you always buy a file card if you don't have one already. You'll be filing away and you'll notice your file will start to build up, the teeth will get filled with some of the material. Simply take it like this, and boom, you're done. File's good to go. That tip there will make your file last so much longer. A few other safety things to consider with files. Files are generally a fairly safe tool. However, the time that they are incredibly dangerous is the files that have the rat tail here, the little tang on them that you put into a handle. Don't ever use those without a handle of some sort on them. I have seen guys that I've worked with take a file and they'll have just hold on to the end of it. It won't have a handle, and it'll catch up on something, and they'll end up just jabbing this thing into their skin. Super dangerous. Actually, in Canada, in like a shop, if you work for a company, it's actually illegal to have files without handles on them, unless of course it's an integrated handle, much like these ones that a lot of them come out with. And these, by the way, these are called an axe file, and it's a combination of a single cut file, so it means the teeth roll like this, or a bastard file. A lot of times these are also referred to like a mill bastard, but really handy tool. Even though it says axe file, I guess they kind of designed it for a handyman to sharpen his axe with. Actually a really great tool, and I use these all the time. A few other things to take notice of and consider when you're looking at buying a file. Some files will have teeth on the sides, some will not. This one does not, and that's actually kind of nice sometimes. Say if you're filing up against something and you don't have to worry about the side cutting, there are certain circumstances when you do not want any teeth on the side of your file. There are circumstances when you do. For instance, if you've got teeth on the side of your file, now you've got a file that's this wide and a file that's this wide, which sometimes can be really handy for filing out little grooves or keyways or something like that. Definitely one thing you just want to consider and know that some come with a safe side, they would call it, and some with a tooth side. Also, some files will come with one side that has no teeth and one side that has teeth, and that's a really good option too, because you have a safe side that you can use, but also you have that nice thin portion if you need to get into a small area and file that way. A few other things with files. Obviously, you can get different types of, this is like a half round file. So this is basically like a bastard file. Bastard, again, is cut this way and this way. Very coarse for removing fine material. This would be a mill file. Mill files are cut in one direction, so the teeth only go this way. And mill files will typically have like a medium and then a fine side to them. A bastard file like this one's a half round bastard. Both sides are cross cut, and it's quite a coarse file. You're not going to get a really nice smooth surface finish with this file, but really good for shaping. These bastards also work fairly well. It sounds like I'm swearing, doesn't it? These bastard files are also really well for working on wood and G10 and materials like that, as they don't seem to clog up quite so much with those as, say, like a single cut file or a mill file would. You've also got your round files. Some of these are getting more borderline into rasps, and subtle differences between a rasp and a file. Certain areas cross over, but we're not going to get too into that. So here's a selection of different round files that I'll use for different processes. This one broke off. Files are very brittle. You need to remember that. When you're storing your files, you do not want them. I would never ever, I was quite concerned about it when I had files in my toolbox. I would never store my files like that because they're going to dull themselves rubbing up against each other. So what I would always do is I just made little cardboard dividers for my files. Now I simply hang them on the rack and I don't have to worry about that. But also, you don't want to store files in a drawer with a bunch of hammers. The possibility is there that you could have a file sitting like this and you set a hammer down and you're going to shatter that. Files are hardened. They're very hard. But also, if you were to take a file up to the edge of a vise and just go tap on it, it'd probably just shatter. Very fragile, but very hard. Much like a knife, before you temper it, once you harden it, that's pretty much the state that the file is in. And they don't do a lot of tempering to them because they want to maintain that hardness, so the teeth don't get dull. For my basic files that I use when I'm knife making or building stuff, working on vehicles, machinery, would be a selection of flat files. Here we have one that has teeth on the edges. This is a mill file, a Craftsman. I'm not sure who makes a Craftsman files, but they're actually fairly decent quality. This would be my go-to. If I were to buy just one file, I would get this Nicholson axe file. It's got a bastard cut on the one side and then a mill cut on the other side, a fairly fine mill cut. But the two of these work very well together. You can do a lot of your roughing out material with this and then get a nicer finish and do a little more precise job with this side. From there, it kind of all depends on what you're doing, I guess, but these round files are super handy. For instance, like when I'm making these little sanding blocks, I can just clear up any burrs. Actually, I use this side for this size for that, and clean things up a little bit and just kind of get in there. These are great for putting in like different notches and choils in your knives. You can do decorative file work with these too. If you're going to get into decorative file work, you're going to want quite a wide assortment of files. And then we've got other options, like this is another half round, obviously a smaller one than this, and it's actually got finer teeth as well. So again, we've got the bastard cut on both sides, half round. You can see that profile there. And these are super handy for shaping, and I use these a lot. And then you've got these round files. Some guys call them rat tail files. And other than that, one other set of files that I'd find really handy are jeweler's files, or needle files they'll call them. These ones are very cheapos. These are made in China, Power Fist. You can get really good quality ones like Starrett, and Nicholson sells them. They're quite reasonable. I think it's like $30 for a set of Nicholsons. All depends on where you buy them, of course, but these usually have a small assortment. It'll be a flat file, and it'll be usually this is a bastard cut on both sides. And then you'll have a very small round file, and you'll have a half round file, and most of them are tapered like this. And that's kind of nice, because if you're using a file this small, you're doing some very intricate work, not heavy stock removal. And this gives you a lot of options in where you need to get. If it's a real fine spot, you can just get right in there, or if it's a little bit bigger spot, you can get in there with this part of it. So this thing's a really handy little tool. A diamond, a triangular file. This is one that I use all the time. This is really nice for, say, if you need to file in some jimping or a little notch, because this doesn't travel so much. So if you put this shape right here, right on the this diamond part, if you put that right on your material and press into it fairly hard, you can cut a nice straight line and it's not going to walk on you so much. Often when I'm doing like my little Spanish choil on a blade, one second. Say for instance, this little Spanish notch right here, I will start that with my triangular file, and once I get a nice deep cut, then I will go to my round file and finish that off. The issue with starting with just a round file in a situation like this is that it can sometimes, it'll walk on you, so it's hard to get an exact place started, and I just find that it's a really handy combination. I'll use a triangular file, start that, get a fairly deep cut in there, and then start using this, coming over it and rounding that out, and it works really good for that. Okay, and then the last file that we'll have in here is a square file. Obviously these vary from set to set, but this is just a four-sided file. This one appears to be the same on all four sides, the same coarseness, so it's not like some are fine, some are not. But again, these are very inexpensive. I've never actually bought a good quality set of needle files yet, maybe soon. But these things are super handy for a knife maker, and also for any type of thing. It's amazing how much you use these little things. If you're getting into making or fixing or any type of thing, these can really save a lot of time and really allow you to do things that otherwise you've been stuck or have taken you a long time. Now I'm just going to show you one technique that you might not have known on using a file, called draw filing. I'll explain it to you first quick. So everybody knows the basic way to use a file. You know, you've got your workpiece and you just file on it like this and like this. Again, you're not dragging backwards with weight. You're cutting in one direction, lifting up, cutting, lifting up, cutting. And every now and then you'll take it and take your file card, clean it up, get all that stuff out of there. And that's the basic way that most people file. There is a way to file, and it's called draw filing, that a lot of people don't know about, but it gives you an incredible finish. It only works with a single cut file, so like a mill file. Maybe this side of this axe file. You can't do it with the bastard or the double cut, cross cut files, only with a single cut file. And what you'll do is you'll have your workpiece down like this, and with your with the single cut down, the handle needs to be in your left hand if you're going to bring it towards you. And what you do is you simply set it on there and then drag it this way. And if you go ahead and try this sometime, you're going to be amazed that you get very, very fine little shavings coming off, and it leaves a really nice surface finish. I'm gonna set up a piece of metal, and I'll show you that real quick. Okay, hopefully you'll be able to see this well for this demonstration. So we've got our two sides of our file here, bastard cut and the mill file. You know, roughing up this piece, we could go over it like this. And we're kind of getting all the cut marks out of there. Okay, so it's not perfect yet, but that's with the coarse side, and then we can go over that with the fine tooth side. And that will certainly yield a better finish. But if we want to get a really great finish on here, we'll take our file, again with the single cut side down, and we have the handle in our left hand, and we pull it towards ourselves. And we get much different shavings doing that way. Very long shavings rather than small little tiny pieces of metal coming off. So I'm going to leave this side filed, and I'm just going to go over this half with just the fine side so you can kind of see the difference. Okay, so you can see this portion right here is where we went over it with the file, just the regular way, and then this bit right here
is where we're doing the draw file method, and it's kind of hard to see. You can kind of see it's a little more coarse of a grain that we've put into it there. This is very, very smooth, very nice surface finish. So hopefully that kind of shows you the difference there. A lot of people don't know about draw filing, but it gives a very beautiful result. And I used to do that when I was hand filing my knives, filing the bevels by hand, and I would go over it afterwards, draw filing the whole thing, and it would flatten it out really well, and then it would also make it just really, really smooth, so that I really didn't have to do too much with sandpaper to get a really nice looking edge, a nice looking bevel.
Alright guys, well that's this week's Tool Time Tuesday. Quick look at hand files. If you're just a weekend warrior, kind of, you know, in the garage tinkering, putting on stuff, if you buy a half decent file like a Nicholson, look after it properly and use it properly, you should only have to buy one of each type and they should last your lifetime. Obviously drop it, you know, that changes things, but if you use files every single day and if you use them properly and look after them, you should get at least 5 to 10 years out of a good quality file. I've got some files that I've had for over 20 years and I use them very regularly. And you know, if you use it properly and you look after it, you'll be one of the very few people on earth that actually understand that concept. So anyways, if you have any suggestions for other Tool Time Tuesday videos, please let me know. Kind of sort of wondering what else I should show you. Obviously this video is very basic. We could cover some more very basic stuff. But other things, like I've done my belt grinder, I've done my even heat kiln, I can maybe show those again. I did bring in a metal lathe that I might show you, might do a video on that. And then also my milling machine, I could show you that. The one thing with doing videos on that stuff is that I could show you a few features of the specific piece of equipment I have, and that might not be useful in you purchasing one. Also, there's so many different options and things you can use them for. And lastly, my milling machine or my lathe are by no means my dream purchases. I just got them for a super hot deal, so that's why I have them. But if I were shopping for a milling machine or a lathe, I may not have the ones that I have now. But anyways, I sure appreciate any suggestions you might have for the Tool Time Tuesday, and thank you for watching, guys. Cheers.